Pleasant good afternoon to you. John Verlin once again with On-Demand Advertising Solutions and Digital Marketing Update video podcast number 96. Had an email this past week from Charlene in Lawrence, Kansas, and she says, John, I've been listening to your podcast. I enjoy a lot of the things you have to say. I'm intrigued with a combination of some of the things you're doing with the social media promotion and also tying in podcast information. But I had started a small business and wanted your opinion on how to get paid. Charlene, thank you for the email. I'm not sure exactly what kind of business you have, but I did happen to notice, just scouring through some things from Manta, I got a post. JT Ripton had some good thoughts that I thought I'd share with you regarding about payment for services rendered, so to speak. And that's a good question. Today, we've got a lot of side gigs. A lot of people are doing things on the side, and they're concerned about obviously getting paid. At the same time, way back when, you would build trust, and you would get to know someone, and their reputation was a big thing. Well, today, with all this online activity, online services, and particularly electronic payments, getting paid technically should be easier because it's all online. However, there are some signs to look for, just like any relationship in business, where if you're feeling uneasy about some things, there are some precautions to take. And I wanted to kind of discuss that to keep that in mind. And again, you have to use your gut instinct, of course, as well as the tools you have. Again, today we have, because of all these online capabilities, whether you're doing an Airbnb type of rental or Uber, Lyft, TaskRabbit, 5RR, I guess they call it, these platforms provide not only billing, but also payment protection for you offering a service. Of course, if you have a craft and you want to put it on Etsy, you can be paid through these platforms, which is a great thing. Matter of fact, you'll see on my blog post here, I've got a 5RR platform for doing voiceover work and podcasts and things like that, and social media promotion. So I like that. I like the idea that it's protected not only for you as a freelancer, but for your client, because they know that if they go through a platform payment, it goes through a system where they're not going to get the finished product until it's paid for, and they can then rate you on that platform. So you have, as a freelancer, you're taking a chance of not getting a happy customer who can give you a poor rating through these platforms, but it also means you can get good ratings and get payment. So it's kind of a win-win, I think. But at the same time, you've got to also consider people that are not going through that platform that you may meet locally in your market, for example, and you want to be able to get paid for whatever you do with them. And this goes back to, again, the trust and things like this. Here are some tips to think about, okay, that if you're meeting someone and they refuse to sign an agreement or a contract, and this kind of acts as, I'm going to call it a trial close when you're selling your services, okay? If they start hemming and hawing when you bring up even the idea of signing something or you'll send something over, that tells you right then they're not ready to buy or be wary, okay? If they were to haggle with you over rates or become really aggressive in discussing rates, that could also be a little bit of a red flag of possible problems to come. In other words, what you're wanting to do, Charlene, is get everything up front in writing as best you can, and use that method as a way to measure the authenticity and honesty of the person you're planning on doing business with. It's sales techniques, sales closing techniques, by using some of these tools, okay? If they're using dismissive language, or undervaluing your work, that can be a red flag also. They're hiring you, for example, maybe if you're an accountant or whatever you are, as a specialist, and they should be willing to pay a fair price. Now, part of the problem, if you want to call it that, it's the reality of all these platforms, whether it's Upwork or TaskRabbit or whatever. It's everybody can be bought at a certain price, and your expertise is now transactional. Okay, you may think you're worth $50 an hour, but the market through these platforms from people all over the world may say you're worth $20 an hour. And you're competing against that. I actually got a logo produced on 5RR from a gentleman in Nigeria. And, it used to cost you $100, $200. He charged $45. And I was happy with the results. So that's something to consider when you're negotiating what a fair price is. But make sure they understand it. And before you do anything, obviously, get terms worked out. Be wary of clients who aren't responsive to emails or phone calls. That could be wasting your time. It could also be an indicator they're not really serious. So again, you're using your sales techniques as in trial closes and ways to get information up front from them. And I don't want to say put them in a box, but you're boxing them in by going through steps that you're going to need to have fulfilled before you do or render your service. Okay, now if they're buying a product, you can put that up online however you want to, and they pay through PayPal or however they're going to do that. If they don't respect your time, also, that's an indicator. If they get really nitpicky or they're constantly harping or complaining, that could be an indicator. And you, again, can try to measure this up front. If you start throwing out some terms and expectations to manage their expectations, and they start going off, then you can gauge that a bit to think, you know what, this is maybe more work than it's really worth, because this person's very, very picky. And if that's the case, you call it off and you move on. So they need to respect your time and effort and not badger you, but try to get that type of behavior up front in your negotiation. If they refuse to pay online, now I know there's some people that don't want to do that. They're old-fashioned and they want to use checks and all that. But again, you're a business person, you're an entrepreneur. Many people today are using PayPal or Square. It's perfectly acceptable. Again, it's a third-party way of getting paid that's protected as far as secure, and they can deposit directly into your account once payment's done. So it's again, you have to use your instincts. Say, well, if this person's not willing to use PayPal or pay me through Square when payments due or whatever, you need to consider that in deciding if you even want to do business with them. And explaining up front how you expect to be paid is really critical. All your expectations need to be upfront and perhaps in writing. The more they agree to that, the better chance you have actually getting paid. The more divisive they are and not wanting to pay attention to those points, belittling them or making fun of them or something, you know right away where their attitude's headed. If they demand upfront delivery before they pay, now that can be kind of tricky, because as a freelancer, you're trying to get businesses, or as a business owner, you're trying to get customers. It can be a balancing act of trust, okay? It's also the realities we face today of getting paid. So if you agree, for example, to provide, say, part of your work up front, and then the balance when, the balance of the work when you're paid, great. But this needs to be discussed up front and get as much of this in writing as possible. And again, if you're using one of those other platforms, that kind of takes care of this issue, because the platform process is not going to allow your services or your whatever you created, say you did a logo, it's not going to deliver the full rendered logo for their use commercially or however they're going to use it until they make final payment. So you're protected from that using those platforms, but you need to get everything in writing if you're not using those to protect how you're going to deliver the final product or services and how you expect to be paid. And you can always offer an incentive, a bonus, a discount, whatever you want to get prepayment. You know, you can be creative in how you do all that because, again, it comes down to somewhat of your gut instinct and trust. And again, just like any business, you know, some clients are not worth messing with. But as long as you explain specifically and not be afraid to put it in writing, because that can be a trial close right there, where you can see how serious they are. But also you got to keep in mind that they could also go onto another platform and find somebody that's doing what you're doing cheaper, and that may be their intention, and that's different today than perhaps it used to be because it's so easy to just go online to some other platform and use that service. So it's a catch-22, but you're doing your homework, you're doing the best you can to explain your benefits, your services, and your expectations up front to help minimize risk of not getting paid. So Charlene, thanks for the email. John Verlin, 12@AT&T.net is my email. Love to hear from you if you have questions or comments. Hope you. I'd love to hear what you think of the video podcast. I've got 96 now, so check out some others in my blog. Let me know if you like them. And I'm at ondemandadvertisingsolutions.com as a website, and we'll talk to you again soon.